What's up, Internet? I'm Randy from PuffItUp, and today we're taking apart one of my personal favorite vaporizers. This is the Fierce by Healthy Rips. To take apart this vaporizer, I'm going to need some help from my official vaporizer disassembly tools. I have a pair of scissors here, 2 sets of pliers, you'll see why later, my hex screwdriver, a couple extra screwdrivers in case we got to pry anything apart, box cutter, and most importantly, a penny. First thing we're going to do is get this silicone cover off. That part's not too hard, right? So far, so good. Let's take a look at that mouthpiece. The mouthpiece is held into place with these 2 guides, and then there's magnets right here, which connect onto the bottom of the mouthpiece. The outer shell is PET. It's a plastic material, and it is food grade. Underneath, you have your screen, which is held into place. The screen itself is stainless steel. This outer piece is cured silicone. This is all one connected piece. However, it looks like you can break it open right here. So let's give that a try. Yep, there we go. So that pops right out. What do we see there? We got this cover piece that's also housing the 2 magnets. Directly underneath that, there's a silicone cushion. I'm sure that's to give the glass an airtight seal and to add a little bit of shock absorption. Let's pull that out. There's your glass piece. And up top, another piece of cured silicone, which seems to redirect your airflow to go through the mouthpiece. Pretty useful. Now the fun stuff, the vaporizer itself. First part, this is why we need our penny. Get that screw door open. Really convenient design. I like that you can replace the doors. Out goes the battery. We're not going to disassemble this. We tried to in our blog post, and it turned out to be a really bad idea. We do not recommend taking apart vaporizer batteries, or batteries in general, actually. This battery is 3.7 volts. It is also 4050 mAh. If you want to learn more about it, we have a full blog post. So underneath the battery door, we have 4 hex screws. And that's why we got the hex driver. Let's go ahead and get those out. I guess now would be a good time to mention that everything we're doing here completely voids your warranty, so don't do this at home and expect a replacement vaporizer. We will be fully ripping this thing apart. We do that so you can see what the internals look like. This is definitely not a guide on how to fix your vaporizer. If anything, it's probably the opposite. All right, last screw. There we go. So 4 screws are out. Let's get that battery door out of the way. Now, the inner chassis slides out. You just push right here, and it comes right out. Kinda. There it is. See that? See how that slides out? It's always important when you're sliding the shells out to keep the buttons facing down. If the buttons are facing upright, they'll jam and they'll make it hard to get the chassis out. That's true for a lot of vaporizers I've seen. There we go. 3 buttons. 1, 2, 3. All separate pieces. You got your outer shell. This is Kirksite with a rubberized coating on it. It's a very solid piece. It really makes the vaporizer feel sturdy. I really like that Healthy Rips uses this material for the outer shells. And the most interesting part, in my opinion, you have the chassis. What's really interesting is how much space is taken up by this battery. This vaporizer is actually mostly battery. It does take a lot of power to keep this vaporizer functioning properly, and plus it gives you a lot of battery life. I get about 2 hours, hour 45 minutes with mine, which is fairly impressive for a vaporizer this size. So on the chassis, up front you have your chamber, and on the other side you have your circuitry. One thing I like about Healthy Rips, they keep the air path really small. It just feeds right out of this air hole. So you can see where they connect. And there's really not a lot of space in between where the bowl is in the chamber and the outside of the vaporizer. I personally like that design. The sooner you can get your airflow outside of the vape, the better, in my opinion. I see on the circuitry we have 2 screws. Those need to come out to get this thing taken apart. So let's go ahead and do that. You'll notice my screwdriver magically changed colors. That's because I was wrong about the size. It's hard to remember these things sometimes. Oh, the first one comes out nice and easy. There we go. These tiny screws are hard to deal with sometimes, but out it comes. So we got rid of those 2 tiny little screws, and off comes the display, I think. Well, let's take this off. Up top, this is where your LCD display is. I think, yep, this part is just adhesive connected. And underneath you have your LCD display. I'm gonna try to keep this all pretty, so I'm gonna pry this piece out real quick. There we go. Directly under the display, you can see your little haptic feedback sensor. That's the vibrating thing. So I think these 2 wires need to go. Time to pull out the old scissors. Wire cutters was probably a better option, but I don't have any here. You know how tools like to disappear on you. Boop. There we got it. There's your little sensor. Let's try to keep everything intact as much as we can. So, this is a heat-resistant tape, by the way. We see this in a lot of vaporizers. I believe it has a temperature rating of about 500 degrees Fahrenheit, which is fine to use as long as it's not directly within your air path, at least in my opinion. Boom. There we go. Pretty cool, right? So we'll show off the chassis one more time. You got your magnets. That connects to the mouthpiece, or at least it did. Not anymore. This is basically just your battery port and your chassis. So we're left with some pretty basic circuitry, which is kind of a good thing. You don't want to be too complex with your internals. That's when you kind of start to have problems with vaporizers. The USB-C port is right on the board. Your buttons, they're all on the same board as well. The LCD display and the haptic sensor are very closely connected. And your chamber, nice and far away from everything, where it should be. I like seeing the electronics separated from the battery, and I like seeing the battery separated from the chamber. Everything kind of having its own little area is, to me, is a nice thing to see. Anyways, let's cut this apart some more. So that's about everything I can show you on the circuitry, but that is always one of my favorite pieces. And of course, we have our heating element, which is usually the most interesting as well. I guess they both are. Let's get rid of these insulators and make it easier to disassemble. Now, I purposely took apart a used vaporizer. We take apart these vaporizers when they're brand new, and we also take them apart when they've been used for a few weeks. The idea is we want to see what happens in the air path, where the debris might be falling. Do we see any residue in places where we don't want to see it, things like that. Anyways, we have underneath the chamber a piece of silicone. There we go, take that out. Up top, looks like we have a little cap. Yep. That holds another silicone ring in place. This outer piece here, this is just insulation. That actually helps maintain battery life by keeping your vaporizer warm. And making it easier to hold too. You don't want a vaporizer that's too hot to hold. So, there's our insulation. Underneath, we have our stainless steel chamber and a little bit more of that heat tape. Why is that? We see heat tape around most chambers actually, and it's to hold this piece. I'm just gonna pull it out. Hopefully I don't damage it. Hopefully I don't damage it, we'll see. No, I probably will. Let's unwrap it. Fine, I'll do it the slow way. Oh, there it goes. That's what we wanted. So we got a naked chamber. We got all the heat tape off. And there's the part I was trying to get to. This is your temperature gauge. The temperature gauge sits right on the outside of the chamber. This is a common spot where we usually see it in most vaporizers. Now these pieces take a little bit of effort to come apart. All these parts are pressure fitted into place. There's 3 pieces of stainless steel here actually, and we need to get them separated. So let's do that. Sometimes there's no pretty way to take apart vaporizers. This would be the perfect example. Hopefully this works. Yeah, perfect. One piece, let's do the other one. Oh, let's try that again. Oh, there we go, finally. I was getting worried there. So you have your top piece, this is your actual chamber, and the piece below. This sits in the middle. Looks a little bit like that, if you can use your imagination, or not. At the bottom of your chamber, you have this stainless steel screen, and directly below it, you have this screen with less air holes. Kind of interesting. I'd be curious to know why they did that. I'll have to ask them someday. And you're down to 2 wires. These 2 wires are actually your heating element. Boom. There we go. Directly underneath the heating chamber and the heating element, there's a small piece of ceramic. I'm not sure if I mentioned that in the blog. I'm gonna have to double check that. And there it is, your simple heating element. The air flows right through the center, the heat gets that air warm, creates convection, and that's how you heat your vaporizer. Pretty interesting, right? If you'd like to see our full review of the Fierce, or if you're ready to grab one, we're gonna leave you some links below. Also, feel free to leave us any questions or comments. We love hearing from you. And like always, thanks for watching.